Hey, where have you been? Just kidding. I'll just say on my end, life be lifing, and things have gotten a little crazy. But it leads me into today's discussion, which is about why we put things off. You have to pardon me. It's a rainy, humid day, and I somehow have gotten volume in my hair, and I am loving it, and I'm gonna live with it all day today. I'm gonna paint with my voluminous hair. I'm gonna go to the grocery store with my voluminous hair. Now, mind you, the second that I step outside, it's gonna go wah, wah, wah. So, anywho. So, are you a procrastinator? I procrastinate, absolutely. Probably have all of my life. It's just, I feel like there's many psychological things that might feed into it, but I feel like I procrastinate when something seems too difficult or it's not fun. Who wants to do stuff that's not fun? Yeah, so we just put things off, and pretty soon it can kind of like snowball, well, if I put it off a day, I'll put it off another day, which becomes a week, which becomes, yeah, you know how it goes. So anyways, so just tell me in the comments, are you a procrastinator, and why do you think? Is it limited to certain areas, or is it everything? For me, it's usually certain areas. Yeah, and I just touched on this. Another reason that I put things off is that I didn't want to do them in the first place. One of my favorite shirts that I ever see, and I don't wear generally shirts that say stuff on them, but one of my favorite shirts that I see a lot is that shirt that says, "Sorry I'm late, didn't want to come." You're my people if you wear that shirt, okay? But I get that, you didn't want to do it in the first place. So of course you kind of put it off. I get that. But I also get, we're not necessarily going to be in love with every single thing that we need to do, but we just need to find a way to get around that. And I've been working on that a lot. And probably one way that I'm focusing on it more right now, and maybe the ladies can relate to this more than the guys, but is like romanticizing a task. And that just is kind of like envisioning me doing it in a more fluffy, frilly, romanticized way, I don't really know how to explain that. So if I just kind of frame it differently, sometimes I can get through it a little bit easier. Sometimes no, though. I think that another reason why we put things off is that we don't have the skills to do whatever it is that needs done. And that's legitimate. I mean, especially in a work environment. Hopefully you pretty much know what you need to do in your work, but sometimes you don't. And that's okay. Growth is a good thing, right? But it's not always comfortable. So yeah, finding that balance of, where do I need to learn to kind of step up to this task? Or, how do I need to learn? How do I gain these skills? Who do I ask? What are my resources? All those things that just kind of help you bridge that gap of your current skill set versus the skill set that you actually need to get something done is really helpful. One other way that I feel impacts me, and it may or may not be medically labeled as ADHD, but kind of that mindset of, not that ADHD is a mindset, but let me just describe it. If I were to say, I think I want to get up and walk across the room for whatever reason, to go see that plant over there, I could think, oh, but I am in the middle of recording, and I'd have to pause my recording, and I might not come back to it. And if I did, I might not sit in the same, position that I was, and it would interrupt the flow. And so there's that plate going. And then there's another plate of, and if I get up, this plate's still going. If I get up, I might stir the dogs downstairs, and then they'd start barking, and they would really interrupt, my recording of what I'm doing. And then I'd have to go downstairs and, oh, and my knees are really hurting me today, and I don't want to keep going up and down these stairs. So then that's going. Okay. And then there's countless other, we'll say like plates spinning. And pretty soon you get all these spinning, and my mind goes, stay seated, Angela. Just don't do it. So, and I've explained that to so many people in different ways. And for people who don't experience it, they look at me like, okay, girl. But for people who experience it, and this most people experience it on some level, they're like, oh yeah, I gotcha. Absolutely. So, and they'll come up with, countless scenarios of their own, and how the spinning or the spinning out actually occurs in their lives as well. That's a big one. That's a really, really big one for me in all areas. So one more reason that we put things off is that we have competing priorities, or we don't have time. That's legitimate. But I would say this, I think that it's always worth sitting down and just, I'm no angel at this, but every once in a while I do have to sit down and say, is it that I don't have time, or is it I'm not prioritizing that which is important? Not just what's urgent, but what's important. What's the needle mover? What's the big rock, or, it might not be big, but what's the rock that needs to be moved in this situation? Just kind of reprioritizing your thinking, which in turn reprioritizes your actions. That's important. And then there's also fear. I think that might be one of the biggest ones too. Have I said that to every one of these? This is a big one. That's a big one too. Yeah. Fear is huge though. Fear of being criticized, fear of being inadequate, fear of being judged, of being talked about, of being doubted, of failing. That's really big, and it's hard to overcome because, I just have had to really think, first of all, as it relates to feedback from other people, the feedback from being judged or something like that. A lot of that is actually them. It's not really me or my skills, capabilities, or anything. It's them. But that's still, it's kind of hard to wrap your mind around that in the middle of it. And then if, say, I don't think that I'm good enough to do whatever, or and when I say good enough, I'm talking about my skills aren't good enough, or, fear of the outcome. Sometimes we have to take those scary steps without knowing what's on the other side. And, so yeah, if you can stop and maybe put it off or not do it, that's more appealing sometimes, and completely understand that. Yeah. So I'd really like to know what holds you back. What makes you not get things done? And how do you get around them? I would love it if you would leave that in the comments. But one of the things that I'll share with you that I've been kind of putting off a little bit was painting the office. I talked about that in the last video. And what I did was I'm painting the office 2 colors. I painted the one wall black, and then the other walls are brown, a little darker than this, more brownish. Yeah, I just kept putting it off. But I've gotten the black wall is done. And, I do this by myself. I'll take you down there and I'll show you progress. So just know, when you're doing things by yourself and you got all this furniture and everything to move, I didn't have the luxury of pulling everything out. Now, this would have stopped me, and it did stop me for a while. I'm thinking, oh, I can't pull all that furniture out. You know, I have the desk and there's just a lot of furniture in that little room downstairs. And there was just 100 things kind of putting up mental roadblocks for me that made me stop and pause. And what I've done is literally just pulled everything away from one wall, painted that wall, put the stuff back that needed to go back up against that wall, and just kind of I'm working my way around. So I've got the one wall and I've got the other wall finished. So I've got 2 more walls. You'll see. You'll see. But there was just a lot of reasons why I was putting things off. Also, I had someone who had committed to come and help me, and it didn't pan out. So I'm on my own, and I'm not a great painter. You know, when you're painting two-tone, it's so important that you get that crisp line. And these are textured walls. They're orange peel walls, and it's really hard. Like even that spongy tape that's supposed to kind of get into the nooks and crannies, it doesn't. So I've literally had to do the ceiling, which is also orange peel texture, and that seam along the walls that have the 2 colors. I've done that with a little paintbrush, just going along. It's been time consuming. And it's not perfect, but it's pretty good. I'm not disappointed with it. It's not something to the point where I'm going to be fixated on it every time I'm in the office, which is a thing for me. So yeah, I'll take you along on that little journey downstairs, and I'll show you the progress that I've made downstairs. So we're in my office. Pardon the sound quality, but hard floors, and yeah, lots of echo. But there is where the 2 different colors meet. Not perfect, but absolutely not horrible. So I've got the black wall done, and I've got this wall done, and here. But then we move over here. Let me see if I can. Still got to do this wall and this wall, which clearly has the most trim work on it. But you see, I'm shuffling things around, and I just don't have the luxury of putting everything outside of the office. So I'm moving it back and forth. So the desk will go up against this wall so that when I'm sitting at it, I'm kind of sitting right in front of the windows right there. So as soon as it's done, I've got curtains that are coming that'll tie everything in quite nicely, and I'm pretty excited about it. Ready to get it done. But I have definitely procrastinated. And, you know, like I said, some of the things that I thought about were, with regard to procrastinating, were that, you know, it's hard cutting in at the ceiling. I've done that with a little itty bitty paintbrush. It was hard. This edge right here, that was challenging. I'm not gonna lie, that was really challenging. I slopped the black paint up there, but then when I came in with the brown, I had to be extra meticulous with it. So I put that off just because I was like, well, I might not be able to do it very well, or it might come out sloppy, and I don't want that. Yeah, it came out quite nice, and I'm not disappointed with it at all. I'm ready to have the room done. So yeah, this is a new to me piece of furniture. My good friend Jenny, who is a subscriber, this was from her home. It's beautiful, and I think it fits perfectly in here. I just moved it in here, so it's still empty, but it's gonna be chock full of stuff soon. Thanks for joining me, and I hope to see you back very soon the next time on Clean Living with a Dirty Mind, where it's not what you might think. Or is it?